welcome to Spirited Art. My name is Catherine and we are going to be painting the monarch butterflies. It is part 2 of Summer Smiles and let's get started. All right, I have a canvas that just has mainly pencil, but if you'd like, you may want to go over the lines with a black marker, like a Sharpie marker. If you do that, make sure that that Sharpie marker is completely dry before you start painting. I'm going to give this one to my son Andrew, who's going to be painting along with us today. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is work on that green background. And I actually gave you a green this time. You can put your brushes in the water if they're not already there. Take your big brush. Get that water out, tap it on your napkin, and I'm gonna take my palette up because what I'm gonna do is start with the green and then I'm gonna add yellow into the background. So I'm gonna start with that green and I'm just gonna brush it all around, and then I'm gonna dip my brush in the yellow and add it over top. So that's gonna give me some blending. You can actually see a little bit of yellow just straight. Then you've got that lighter green and then the original dark green. So as I add colors to the background, you're gonna get a few shades of green in there, which is kind of neat. Now you can leave it brushy or you can smooth it out once the paint is on there. And you wanna come right up to that milkweed. And you can even put a few strokes of the green inside there in case it shows through, because we're actually gonna use a dabbing motion to fill in the milkweed, so you may see some of the background behind it. With all the purples that we're gonna add, you probably won't see much, but just in case. All right, so I'm coming around the milkweed. When you get up to the butterflies, you may wanna use your little brush to get around their wings, and I'm going back with that yellow now over top of the green that I just added, and it's lightening it up a little bit. Don't worry about going inside your butterfly, particularly if you outlined in black. You'll be able to see it. This is all going to be black, the body will be black, and most of that outline around the wing will be where the black is, so you can fix that up a little bit later, as long as you can see the line. You don't want to go over it so much that you can't see it, because then you won't know where to outline the butterfly. I'm going to get a little more green on my brush, and a little more yellow. And I'm just going all around those butterflies and the milkweed stalks. And like I said, you might want to put a little bit of green inside where the milkweed is. How are you doing, Andrew? Good. Okay,
I
great.
kind of want now
A darker green?
A little light green.
Okay.
Little more light green.
So if you want to mix it on your plate, that's completely fine. Even if you want to mix this yellow and green together before you put it on your canvas, some people like to do that, and that's completely fine. So whatever you're most comfortable with. If you don't like to mix on the canvas, then just mix it on your mixing plate and then put it on the canvas. And like Andrew's doing, if you'd like to add a little white in there, that's also a nice color. It'll change it to a nice color green. If you want to just add a tiny bit of white on your bristles, you can put it in what you already have on your canvas, or you can actually mix the color. So I put a little bit of white in, that's right there. It also kind of smooths out those brush strokes if you're not a big fan of texture in your background or the brush strokes. The thing is that this is kind of grassy. It's, we're in a field where these butterflies are landing, so a little bit of texture is nice. But if you're not a big fan of that, just add a little white and that'll work. All right, I'm gonna put that back up.
Mom?
Yes.
I kind of went all in on one of the, not on like the weed, but the weed under the butterfly.
That's fine, bud. Yeah, we'll put the purple over top. Don't worry about that.
Okay.
All right, so we're gonna let that green dry a little bit. Let's rinse our brush because you may have some yellow in it. Now to get that purple, we're actually going to use the green because it has a lot of blue in it. So we're gonna actually add red to that green to make our purple. So we really don't want any yellow in there in our brush. So because we went back and forth with the green and the yellow or possibly the white, you wanna rinse that brush. And what I'm gonna do is take just a corner of green and some red And I'm gonna mix that together and I should get a dark, dark purple. All right, you can actually put a little more green in it. I was hesitant because I didn't want it to be too dark. It almost should look black. Okay,
Mom?
so mix that up. You've got a scoop of green and
You could
a scoop of red.
your back of the brush to like tap it on.
Well, you could, but we're actually gonna use the bristles to put it on, bud. All right, so you probably need a little more paint than that, Andrew, so go ahead and take another scoop of green and a half scoop of red. All right, now, as you can see in the example, we have a lot of purples to put on there.
That's
Okay.
making it more green.
Okay, so add some red. All right, so what I'm gonna do with my brush is I'm just gonna dab it and I'm gonna twist it a little bit too, so it's not all the exact same direction. And I'm gonna go into each of those milkweed plants with this dark color. A lot of this dark color is gonna get covered up by some of those other purples, but let's put a few in there. A few dabs of purple.
Mom, mine isn't purple anymore because I think the green light took it down. So I'm going to put
Okay, work on that, bud.
in there.
I'm gonna come right up to the butterfly too. Okay, so I have a little of this dark purple that I'm gonna take off to the side. I wanna leave a little bit just in case I need to go back in with some of this. And then I'm gonna take just a little bit of white and make it a little lighter tint. So when you add white to a color, it's called a tint. So I'm gonna add some white and I'm gonna take this color and I'm gonna dab that into my milkweed too. And it's okay if some of that blends. You don't wanna cover all the dark purple. You actually wanna see that come through. And as you are dabbing, you may pick up some more dark purple. So you may need to go back to your lighter color and you might even need to grab some more white in there depending on how much you have. So I have these stalks right here that are pretty defined, and then I'm just gonna use this color and I'm just gonna dab a little. It's kind of to give the inference of some other milkweed plants. It's not as, it doesn't look as sketched out, in other words, but I'm just dabbing to put some purple in some of the other areas. And then I'm gonna go ahead and put a little more white to make a lighter purple, and we're gonna do this one more time. So we've got a lighter purple here, and we're gonna come back up and add that in, and you're trying to close in all of the space. So you can overlap what you already have, but you're also trying to close in all that space. So if you see any open spots that have white, if you see the green, that's fine. You can see the green through the milkweed, but if you see any white spots, you wanna get some of that purple color on there. And like I said, if it starts to look too light in there, go back to your darkest purple and just put a few dabs in, okay? And you can work on this until you're happy with it. I'm gonna add one more little bit of white, and this is gonna be my lightest purple color. Oops, that's a lot. It almost looks like a light gray. It's sort of a purpley gray. And I'm adding that into those inferences too. All right, when you're all finished with that color, and by the way, if you want to switch to your little brush at any time and try dabbing with your little brush, that would be a different type of texture too, and so that might look really nice. So you're welcome to try that as well. But now I'm going to rinse my brush and we're going to start working on the butterflies. Andrew, would you like to start working on the butterflies with us and we can come back to your purple? Okay, great. So rinse your brush really well, and you're going to take a big scoop of yellow. So let's make sure we have all of that purple out of our brush.
Big scoop of yellow.
Yep, a big
and
scoop of yellow.
a little scoop of red.
Correct. And like a corner of red, because I always like to add more red until I get to the orange, but you don't want to add too much because it's hard to go back the other way.
like a gold.
So I'm gonna add just a little more red to my orange, but you get to a place where you like your orange. It's a little more of a red orange for a monarch butterfly, but it can be light. It can be lighter if you want more of a pumpkin.
I think it's going to be a little bit hard to fit in the small spaces, so I'm going to use my little brush.
Well, actually, Andrew, all we're gonna do, we're actually gonna paint the whole wing. What we're gonna do is paint the whole wing, and we will draw that black pattern over top of the orange, okay? So don't worry about getting in all those little spaces. You're actually gonna go ahead and paint the whole wing, not the body, although if you paint the body, it's okay. But we're gonna paint the whole wing, leaving the body open, orange. And then we actually are gonna need to let that dry before we can put the detail on.
I'm not going to like make it, oh no. I need to make my color over again because I wanted to get it darker because some of the green got in it.
Okay. And don't worry too much about those edges because we're actually gonna outline those in black. That's all gonna be black. So you can clean up your edges when we get to the black part. Okay, great. Now, if you want to try to put just a little bit of variation in your wings, you can dip your brush in the yellow. I think I have a little purple in my brush. And you can just brush a little bit of yellow over top of that orange and give yourself just a little variation. Like I said, a lot of this is going to be covered up by black when we put the design on, so you may not see a lot of this, but it's kind of nice to just put a little bit of yellow over top of what you have there to give it just a little bit of a variation. I don't know if that's coming across, if you can see that on the video. Can you see the little bit of yellow in the wings? All right. And I'm gonna rinse my brush now. I have a ton of orange in my brush, so I'm gonna rinse that out. Take your time, Andrew.
I want to hit this green out.
Yeah, actually sometimes, this is a good example. Sometimes when you have a green color, you want to rinse your brush completely. Can I pick that up for you? I'm going to actually use a dry brush and pick it up. See how I got the green? Then I'm going to rinse that off. Okay, you could also maybe use a paper towel to wipe over that. Wait a minute. Don't add more. Oh, okay. Because I'm trying to get all that green off before we spread it out again. So I'm going to try to just pick it up.
Wait, did you pick all of it?
Mm-hmm. You might want to use, yep, we might want to use a napkin sometimes if there's too much green in there.
I want like a gold color.
That's where your orange is. This is green, okay? So you can put that back. All right, I'm going to blow dry my butterflies just to make sure.
I wanted to use my little brush. Okay, it's not completely dry, but it'll work for now. Let's take our little brush and we're going to dip straight into the black. Oh, by the way, let's make sure it's really dry. We don't want any black drips down our canvas. I'm gonna take my palette over and I'm gonna roll my little brush so it has a nice point on it. And I'm going to, first I'm gonna outline the wing. So you'll have to keep dipping. As soon as you start seeing it break up with the black line, that means you need some more paint. So go ahead and re-dip. And very lightly, you don't have to press very hard. You want to go around the edge of the wing.
And we will thicken some of that up. And then let's go ahead and fill in the body. So it's kind of a circle at the top. Then you have these two parentheses that create kind of an almond shape. And then it's more of like a little triangle at the bottom. All right, I'm gonna do that on the bottom one as well. I'm gonna outline it. And take your time on this part, especially as you're drawing the patterns into the butterfly. Because black is a hard color to take off. So down at the body of the larger butterfly. And by the way, this one is facing front, so you can see the full body. Whereas the other one is sitting on the milkweed, so we're seeing the profile. All right, so we've got the body filled in and the wing outlined. Now we're going to come in, and this is the part where you can be creative. You don't have to follow the lines, or you can add more lines if you want to make smaller little sections in the wings. So you have some very large sort of outlines, or guidelines I should say, and some of them don't match the wing or meet up with the wing. So you're going to actually thicken the edge of the wing, thicken that outline. When you're on you may want to start with the big butterfly because he'll be a little easier to do. When the small one is going to be harder because the lines are going to be much smaller. So now you have some very large spaces, so you can actually thicken up your black lines to trim them down. Keeping the shape, the main shape of the butterfly wing. So once you have the lines on there, it's easy to just go back and thicken them up. And at this point too, if you want to add another line here or there, you could do that. So I just added this extra line here, and I made 2 spaces where there was 1. So then I'll keep this a big long orange shape, but I'll just thicken up that line, and then I'll make another line here. So that's up to you how many spaces and what kind of pattern you might want to add to your butterfly. Then let's work on the other side. You may want to do just the lines that are on the pattern and then come back to it and see what else you might want to add. And then don't forget to add the antenna. So they are going to be in 2 separate spots. So I'm going to come to the side of the head and just pull up and away from the head. And it should be a really thin little line. If you want to use a marker, you could certainly do that. You could use a Sharpie marker to add those. That might be a good idea. All right, so now we're gonna work on the butterfly at the top. And the first thing I'm gonna do is go back and thicken up some of the outline again, especially towards the curved part of the wing, like the very bottom right there and the curve at the top right here. And then I'm gonna just use a really thin touch as I fill in the rest. Last thing on that top butterfly is to put his antenna, and they're kind of going in a little bit of a half circle towards the milkweed. So you're kind of bending those lines towards the milkweed instead of straight up and down like we did with the bottom butterfly. And go back anywhere you see the black line breaking up and you see some white dots in there, or maybe you see the orange through the black. You can add a little more black so that it's a very nice, crisp black line. So go ahead and look at see right here, I can see that orange coming through. It was probably a little bit wet when I went over it with the black, so I'm just gonna tidy that up with some more black paint. So go back through and look at all those lines. Make sure that they're very solidly black. And then we wanna let it dry, because when we put those white dots on, we don't want the black paint to be wet. These guys look pretty cool. All right, I think I'm gonna blow dry it one more time so that I can put those white dots on. Now, if you don't have a hairdryer or you don't want to blow dry, you can just let it sit for a minute and go get a drink or something like that. I am trying to make this video not too long, so I don't want to sit and let it wait. So I'm gonna blow dry it. These butterflies look like monarchs. What do they need?
Dots.
What? Yep, they need some white dots.
I'm doing my dots again, but I already did them.
Oh, okay. All right, are you using the front or the back of the brush?
The front.
You're using the back.
For mine.
Okay, cool. So you can use the bristles if you want to, but you can also take the back of the brush and just lightly dip it in the white. And this is how we're gonna make these little tiny white dots. So I'm gonna put them in the body and just very, very lightly touch until you are out of paint. And that actually is gonna help you make a variety of sizes. So as you run out of paint, your little dots will get smaller. And I'm basically going around the edge of the wing and into the body, particularly the head. Some of them are in clumps and some are just one all the way down. And I'm not going in a line, I'm kind of scattering them. If you want to use the bristles, that's good too. You can totally do that. And I'm going all the way around the edge. That's what makes the monarch so pretty. It's got so many different aspects to it. The black and orange on the wings, and then just a little bit of white on the edge and the body. They're so cool. If you end up looking at this and saying, I have too many white dots, you can actually just paint over some with black. Wait till they dry. Wait till the white dries. And then if you want to, you could always go back and put some black over top. I think in the example I did do that because I ended up getting a little bit too much white on there, and I just painted over it in black. Just make sure it's dry because you don't want to have a bunch of gray in your butterfly. Unless you do. Just going around the outer edge of the top one. I'm just putting a few like on the tail and a few on the head. Now if you want to put a couple dots here and there on the inside, you can do that. It's kind of up to you. And then the last thing I'm gonna do is just put a little bit of a white highlight on. I'm just gonna pull it down with the back of the brush. If you want to use the bristles, you could do that too, and it's just a little white highlight on the antenna. And again, if it gets too big, you can always go back with a little bit of black and cover that up. But I think our butterflies are complete. All right, so I hope you enjoyed painting these monarch butterflies with us, and you do have the 2 cookies to paint too, so go get some clean water and then you can hydrate the colors and paint in your butterfly and your sunshine. So happy summer everyone, and I hope you had a good time.